The massive space station Kepler Prime floated silently in the void between star systems, its crystal dome reflecting the light of distant suns. Inside the great council chamber, beings from across the galaxy sat around a circular table that seemed to stretch forever. The air was thick with tension, and the smell of different alien atmospheres mixing together. Ambassador Minji sat straight in her chair, her black hair pulled back in a simple style. Her dark eyes moved slowly around the table, studying each alien face. She had been doing this job for 3 years now, but today felt different. Today felt final. To her left sat the Vorthak Elder, his insect-like body clicking and buzzing as he spoke. His 4 arms gestured wildly while his compound eyes never blinked. "The human expansion must stop," he said in his mechanical voice. "Your species takes more worlds each month. Where will it end?" Across the table, War Commander Grix of the Korix Empire slammed his massive fist down. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. His red skin glowed brighter when he was angry, and right now he looked like a small sun. "Humans promise peace but bring warships. We see your fleets at our borders." Minji kept her face calm, but inside she felt tired. So very tired. These talks had been going on for 8 long months. Every week it was the same complaints, the same demands, the same threats. The aliens wanted humanity to stop growing, stop exploring, stop dreaming of new worlds. "We have offered technology sharing," Minji said quietly. Her voice carried clearly in the chamber's perfect acoustics. "We have offered trade agreements. We have offered joint exploration missions. But you demand we stop expanding entirely. That is not something we can do." The Zephyrian delegate, a being of pure energy contained in a shimmering suit, pulsed with bright colors. When it spoke, the voice sounded like wind chimes. "Humans breed too fast. Humans explore too much. The galaxy has rules. Order must be maintained." Minji almost smiled at that. Humans breed too fast. As if having children was a crime. As if wanting to see new worlds and build new homes was somehow wrong. She thought of her own daughter back on Earth, only 5 years old, who dreamed of becoming a space pilot. Should that little girl be told she could never see the stars because aliens were afraid of human ambition? "The galaxy is vast," Minji replied. "There are billions of worlds with no life at all. Why can we not settle on empty planets?" "Because you do not stay on empty planets," hissed the Serpentine representative. Its scale shifted from green to angry red as it spoke. "First you take dead worlds. Then you want the worlds with resources. Then you want our worlds." That was a lie, and everyone in the room knew it. Humanity had never attacked an inhabited world. They had never stolen anyone's home. They only settled on planets with no intelligent life, usually planets that no one else wanted anyway. But the truth did not seem to matter anymore. Minji's communication device, a small chip behind her ear, suddenly came alive with an urgent message. It was encrypted, which meant it came from Earth Command. As the message downloaded directly into her brain, her eyes widened slightly. Then her jaw tightened. The message was short and clear. "Project Homecoming is complete. All dormant sites are now active. You are ordered to terminate negotiations immediately and return to Earth. The children are coming home." Minji had no idea what Project Homecoming meant, but she understood the tone. Something big was happening. Something that changed everything. She looked around the table one more time at the alien faces. Some looked angry. Some looked worried. A few looked almost sad, as if they knew what was coming. Standing up slowly, Minji placed her hands on the table. The chamber fell silent. Even the various breathing, buzzing, and humming sounds stopped as everyone waited for her to speak. "The Terran Federation withdraws from these proceedings," she said clearly. Her voice was steady, but there was something new in it now, something cold and final. "We will no longer pretend that words can solve what actions have made clear." The reaction was immediate and explosive. The Vorthak Elder's clicking became frantic. War Commander Grix roared and stood up, his red skin now blazing like fire. The Zephyrian's energy form flickered wildly between colors. Voices began shouting in dozens of languages. But Minji was already moving. She gathered her papers with calm, precise movements. The other human delegates stood up as well, following her lead. They walked toward the chamber's exit in perfect formation, ignoring the chaos behind them. "This means war," screamed the Chorus commander. "Your species will pay for this insult." Minji paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. When she spoke, her voice carried over all the noise and shouting. "War was always your choice, not ours. You had 1,000 opportunities to share the galaxy in peace. You chose fear instead." Then the humans were gone, leaving behind a chamber full of aliens who suddenly realized that everything had just changed forever. The great game of galactic politics had ended, and no one knew what would come next. 3 weeks had passed since the humans walked out of the peace talks. 3 weeks of silence from Earth and all human colonies. Then the reports started coming in from the Outer Rim territories, and nothing made sense anymore. Admiral Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars through the massive front window. The ship was enormous, bigger than anything humanity had ever built before. Its black metal hull seemed to drink in the starlight instead of reflecting it. The other officers moved quietly around the bridge, checking systems and preparing for something that none of them fully understood. "Sir, the fleet is in position," reported Captain Su Min from her station. Her fingers danced over holographic controls that glowed blue in the dim light. "All 200 ships are ready and waiting for your command." Jinwoo nodded slowly. 200 ships. 3 weeks ago, the entire human space navy had maybe 50 vessels, most of them small patrol boats and cargo haulers. Now they had fleets of massive warships that seemed to appear from nowhere. The ships looked human, but the technology inside them was far beyond anything Earth had possessed before. "Any word from the alien fleets?" Jinwoo asked. "Yes, sir. The Korix battle group is holding position about 10 light hours away. The Vorthak are sending scout ships to probe our defenses. The Zephyrians have 3 energy cloud formations moving toward our border." Sumin paused and looked up at him with worried eyes. "Sir, they're not attacking. They're just watching." That was the strange part. Everyone expected a war after the humans left the peace talks. The alien fleets had mobilized quickly, moving toward human space with weapons ready. But when they arrived at the borders of human territory, they stopped. They formed a loose blockade around human worlds, but made no move to attack. Jinwoo walked to the tactical display in the center of the bridge. The 3-dimensional map showed human space as a blue bubble surrounded by red dots representing alien ships. But something was different about the map now. The blue area was much larger than it had been a month ago. "Sumin, show me the territorial changes," he ordered. The display shifted, showing human space as it was before the peace talks and how it looked now. The difference was shocking. Human territory had doubled in size, with new blue zones appearing all over the galaxy. But these weren't conquered worlds. According to the reports, these were human settlements that had always been there, but somehow nobody knew about them. Lieutenant Tejo called out from his communication station. "Sir, we're getting reports from the Vorthak scout fleet. They sent 3 ships to investigate the mining colony on Kepler 442b. And Jinwoo asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "The ships are gone, sir. No explosion, no debris field, no distress signals. They just stopped existing." Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. This was the 4th time this week. Alien ships that got too close to human worlds simply vanished. Not destroyed, not captured, just gone as if they had never existed at all. On the Korix flagship Blood Thunder, War Commander Grix stared at the same tactical reports with growing confusion and fear. His red skin had gone pale, almost pink, which meant he was deeply troubled. "Explain this to me again," he growled at his intelligence officer. "How did the humans build all these ships so quickly?" The smaller Korix officer nervously checked his datapad. "We don't know, sir. Our spies reported no unusual industrial activity on human worlds. No new shipyards, no massive resource movements. These fleets just appeared." "Ships don't just appear." Grix roared, his skin flaring bright red again. "Someone built them somewhere. Sir, there's something else." The intelligence officer's voice became very quiet. "We've been analyzing the energy signatures from their new ships. The technology doesn't match anything in our databases. It's not human technology, at least not the human technology we know about. Grix turned to stare out at the human fleet in the distance. The ships hung in space like black daggers, perfectly still and silent. No radio chatter, no patrol movements, no signs of normal fleet activity. They just waited. Back on the Indomitable, Jinwoo received another communication from Earth Command. This message was longer than usual, and as he read it, his eyes widened in surprise. "Sir," Suman asked, noticing his expression, "is everything all right?" Jinwoo looked up from his display. "Prepare the fleet for Phase 2 operations. We're not here to fight the aliens. Sir, we're here to contain them." Jinwoo's voice became hard as steel. "No alien ship is to cross into human space. Any vessel that attempts to do so will be stopped permanently." Over the next few days, more alien fleets arrived at the human borders. The Serpentine brought their bio-ships, living vessels that pulse with organic light. The Crystalline Collective sent geometric ships that looked like flying diamonds. The Machine Union deployed cube-shaped vessels that hummed with mechanical precision, but none of them crossed the line. They all stopped at the exact same distance from human space, as if there was an invisible wall they could not pass. And whenever a brave or foolish captain tried to test that barrier, their ship simply ceased to exist. The galaxy began to understand that humanity hadn't just left the negotiating table. They had rewritten the rules of the game entirely. Dr. Yuna floated through the ancient corridors of the derelict space station, her helmet light cutting through darkness that had lasted for thousands of years. The research vessel Endeavour had found this precursor facility drifting at the edge of the Kepler 186 system, hidden inside a dead comet that looked like any other piece of space rock. "The power readings are getting stronger," she spoke into her radio. Captain Jehun's voice crackled back from the ship. "Be careful in there, Yuna. We still don't know what killed the original crew." Yuna smiled inside her helmet. The precursors had been gone for 50,000 years. Whatever killed them was long dead, too. She pushed herself through a doorway that was perfectly round, unlike the rectangular doors that most species preferred. Everything about precursor architecture felt alien and ancient. The corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures that reached from floor to ceiling. Each crystal was the size of a person and glowed with a soft blue light. As Yuna approached one of them, symbols began appearing on its surface, writing that seemed to move and shift like living things. "I'm seeing some kind of data storage system," she reported. "The crystals are responding to my presence." She pulled out her portable scanner and connected it to the crystal. Immediately, information began flowing into her device faster than she had ever seen. The translation software worked frantically to make sense of the alien writing. What it showed her made her heart stop. The first file was titled "Final Warning to the Scattered Children." Below were thousands of other files with names like Genetic Lock Protocols, Sleeper Population Maps, and Emergency Awakening Procedures. But one file made her hands shake as she read it. Human Species Classification, Warrior Caste, Exile Status, Containment Successful. "Captain," she whispered into her radio, "you need to see this. We need to get back to the ship right now." 2 hours later, Yuna sat in the Endeavor's conference room with the entire senior staff. The holographic display showed pages and pages of precursor text with human translations scrolling beside them. Captain Jehun read aloud, his voice getting quieter with each sentence. "The warrior caste has grown too dangerous. Their expansion threatens the stability of the core worlds. Exile protocols are now in effect. Sleeper populations will be scattered across the outer rim, their memories locked, their true nature hidden even from themselves." Commander Hyong leaned forward in his chair. "Are you saying that humans aren't originally from Earth?" Yuna nodded, her face pale. "According to this, Earth was just one of hundreds of prison worlds. The precursors took human warriors and scattered them across the galaxy, then locked away their memories and abilities. They turned us into farmers and builders instead of fighters." "But why?" asked Lieutenant Sunwoo. "Because we were winning." Yuna brought up another file on the display. "The humans weren't just another species in the precursor empire. We were their military arm, their enforcers. But we got too powerful, too independent. So they exiled us in hope we would forget who we really were. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. Captain Jahun finally spoke. The recent expansion, the new technology, the fleets that appeared from nowhere, it's all connected, Una finished. Something triggered the awakening protocols. The genetic locks are breaking down. Humans across the galaxy are remembering what they really are. She brought up a star map that made everyone gasp. It showed the current human expansion, but overlaid with precursor data from 50,000 years ago. The patterns were identical. Humanity was reclaiming exactly the same territories they had controlled before their exile. There are human populations on worlds we've never heard of, Una explained. Settlements that have been there for millennia, just waiting. The mining colony on Kepler, 442b, isn't a recent settlement. According to this, it's been there for 47,000 years. Lieutenant Tejo spoke up from the back of the room. What about the technology? How are we suddenly building ships that are more advanced than anything else in the galaxy? Una smiled grimly. We're not building them. We're remembering how to build them. The precursors locked away our knowledge, but they didn't destroy it. It was always there, buried in our genetic memory. She brought up another file that showed technical specifications for weapons and ships that looked exactly like the new human fleet. The dates on the files were ancient. The Indomitable and ships like it aren't new designs, she said. They're old designs that we just remember how to make. Captain Jahun stood up slowly. We need to get this information to Earth Command immediately. If you're right, then the other alien species. They're not dealing with human colonists, Una finished. They're dealing with the return of their former masters. The precursors built their empire using human warriors, and now those warriors are waking up. The implications were staggering. Every human settlement in the galaxy was potentially a military base that had been sleeping for 50,000 years. Every human civilian might be a soldier who just didn't remember their training yet. As the Endeavor prepared to jump back to human space, Una looked one last time at the precursor data. There was one file she hadn't mentioned to the others. Its title was simple but terrifying. What to do when the warriors return. The file was empty. The first signs appeared on Mining World Kepler, 442b at exactly 0300 Galactic Standard Time. Miners who had worked the same tunnels for 20 years suddenly stopped their digging and walked deeper into mountain. They moved like people in a dream, their eyes strangely bright in the darkness. Foreman Park Minsu tried to stop them. Hey, where are you going? Your shifts aren't over. But the miners didn't answer. They walked past him as if he wasn't there, following some invisible call that only they could hear. Minsu followed them down corridors he had never seen before, even though he had been working this mine for 15 years. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber that shouldn't have existed. The walls were covered in smooth metal that hummed with power. Huge machines lined the floor, machines that looked like they had been waiting for decades to be turned on. As the miners spread out and began touching control panels, the entire chamber came alive with lights and sounds. What is this place? Minsu whispered to himself. One of his miners, a quiet woman named Lee Sumin, turned to look at him, but her eyes were different now, ancient and knowing. This is what we were always meant to find, she said in a voice that sounded older than her years. We remember now. Similar scenes played out across 17 star systems that night. On the agricultural world of New Eden, farmers abandoned their crops and walked to hidden bunkers buried beneath their fields. The bunkers opened at their touch, revealing stockpiles of weapons and equipment that had been waiting in darkness for thousands of years. On the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, scientists suddenly understood technologies they had been studying for decades. Dr. Kim Jinwoo looked at his research notes on quantum mechanics and laughed, not because it was funny, but because he finally saw how simple it all was. How had he missed something so obvious? Admiral Jinwoo received reports from across human space as his fleet maintained its position at the border. Each report was more impossible than the last. Sir, the mining colony on Kepler, 442b, is now showing massive power outputs, reported Captain Sumin. The energy reading suggests they have industrial capacity equal to Earth's entire manufacturing sector, and New Eden Jean Wu asked. The agricultural world is launching ships, sir. Not cargo haulers or passenger transports. Warships. Big ones. Jean Wu nodded as if this made perfect sense, though part of his mind still struggled to understand. Deep in his thoughts, something whispered that this was normal, that this was how things should be. The feeling grew stronger every day. On the alien side of the border, panic was spreading through the various fleets. War Commander Grix of the Corex Empire studied intelligence reports with growing horror. "Explain this to me," he demanded of a science officer. "Yesterday, the humans had maybe 200 ships. Today our sensors are detecting over 3,000 vessels." The science officer, a nervous young Corex with barely red skin, checked his instruments again. "Sir, they're not building these ships. They're finding them. Our long-range scanners are picking up massive structures emerging from asteroids, from dead planets, even from inside nebulas, places we thought were empty space." "How is that possible?" "We don't know, sir. But there's more." The officer brought up a star chart that made Grix's blood run cold. "We've been monitoring human settlements for decades. Routine surveillance. Nothing special. But, sir, some of these settlements are much older than we thought." The chart showed human colonies with dates beside them. Grix had expected to see settlement dates from the last few centuries, when humans first achieved spaceflight. Instead, he saw numbers like 47,000 years and 52,000 years and 38,000 years. "This must be an error," Grix muttered. "We thought so too, sir, but we ran the tests 3 times. The settlements are ancient. They've been there longer than our own civilization has existed. Meanwhile, on Earth, something was happening to ordinary people living ordinary lives." Teacher Young Minji was in the middle of explaining mathematics to her class when she suddenly stopped. The numbers on the blackboard didn't look like simple addition anymore. They looked like part of something bigger, something that connected to the movement of stars and the flow of energy through space. "Children," she said quietly, "I need you to go home early today." Construction worker Choi Sunwoo put down his hammer and stared at the building he was working on. He could see how to make it better, stronger, more efficient. Not just this building, but all buildings. He understood architecture in ways he never had before, as if the knowledge had been sleeping in his mind and was just now waking up. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Jinwoo received a priority message from Earth Command. It was shorter than usual, just a few words. "Phase 3 is authorized. The children are ready to come home." As he read the message, Jinwoo felt something shift inside his mind. Memories that weren't quite memories began surfacing. Images of vast fleets in distant worlds, of battles fought among the stars, of an empire that had once ruled half the galaxy. He turned to his crew and spoke with absolute certainty, though he couldn't say how he knew the words were true. "Prepare for fleet-wide operations. We're not just defending human space anymore." His voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded star fleets for centuries, even though he was only 35 years old. "We're going home." The war that every alien species prepared for never came. Instead, something far worse happened on a quiet Tuesday morning when the human fleets simply moved into position around every major trade route in the galaxy. Captain Taeyun watched from his Corex merchant ship as sleek human vessels took positions near the jump gates that connected different star systems. The ships didn't attack anyone. They didn't demand surrender. They just sat there, silent and waiting. "Attention all non-human vessels," came a calm voice over the communication channels. "You are hereby restricted from entering human-controlled space. Any attempt to cross designated boundaries will result in immediate interdiction. This is your only warning." The voice belonged to someone who called herself Custodian Minji, though Taeyun remembered her as the ambassador who had walked out of the peace talks months ago. She spoke from a massive station that hung in space like a black star, a structure so enormous it could be seen from several light hours away. "What does interdiction mean?" asked Taeyun's co-pilot, a young Corex named Jinsu. Taeyun didn't know, but he was about to find out. A Vorthack cargo ship tried to push past one of the human blockade vessels. There was no flash of weapons, no explosion, no debris field. The cargo ship was simply there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never existed. The blockade worked with terrifying efficiency. Within days, the galaxy's economy began to collapse. Trade routes that had carried goods between worlds for thousands of years were suddenly cut off. Ships that tried to find alternate paths discovered that humans had somehow placed vessels at every possible crossing point. On the industrial world of Corex Prime, War Commander Grix stood in a command center watching his empire slowly starve. Red warning lights flashed on displays, showing critical supply shortages. "Sir, the quantum crystal shipment from the Andorian mines never arrived," reported his logistics officer. "Without those crystals, our fleet weapons will stop working in 2 weeks." Grix's skin had gone from bright red to a dull gray. "What about the medical supplies from Vega 7? "Also blocked, sir. The human interdiction fields won't let anything through." The horrible truth was becoming clear. For centuries, alien civilizations had built their economies around trade routes that passed through space they thought was empty. But that space had never been empty. It had always been human territory. They just hadn't known it. The Vorthak, who had lived for thousands of years using life-extending drugs made from rare elements, found their supplies cut off. Within months, beings who had been alive since before human spaceflight began aging rapidly and dying. Their vast knowledge died with them. The Zephyrian energy beings discovered that their technology required special crystals that only grew on worlds now claimed by humans. Without these crystals, their energy forms began to fade and weaken. Even worse was what happened to species that tried to fight back. The Serpentine Empire sent their entire battle fleet to attack a human blockade position. The fleet consisted of 300 bioships, living vessels grown from modified space creatures. They moved in perfect formation toward the human barrier. The human response was swift and absolute. Every Serpentine ship stopped moving at exactly the same moment. They didn't explode or catch fire. They just became still, hanging in space like dead things. When rescue ships arrived days later, they found the bioships were still alive, but their crews had vanished completely. On Earth, ordinary people continued their daily lives, but everything felt different now. Construction worker Sunwoo found himself building structures that served purposes he didn't fully understand. Teacher Minji taught children subjects that weren't in any textbook, knowledge that seemed to flow from somewhere deep in her genetic memory. The most chilling change came in the final broadcast from Custodian Minji. She appeared on every screen in the galaxy simultaneously, speaking from her massive station that had grown even larger since the blockade began. "Citizens of the galaxy," she said in a voice that was patient but absolutely final. "For 50,000 years, you lived in peace because we were sleeping. We were content to be farmers, miners, and explorers. We asked only to share the stars with you as equals." Behind her, the view showed human fleets positioned at strategic points throughout the galaxy. Not attacking, just watching and waiting. You chose a different path. You demanded we stop growing, stop exploring, stop dreaming of new worlds. You threatened our children and called us a danger to galactic stability. The image shifted to show alien worlds where the lights were going dark as power systems failed without critical components. Now you will learn what galactic stability truly means. You will learn the difference between negotiation and mercy. You will learn why our ancestors scattered us across the stars and locked away our memories. Custodian Minji's expression remained calm and almost sad as she delivered her final words. "The children have come home. The galaxy belongs to its rightful guardians once again. You are free to live on your worlds in peace, as long as you remember your place in the new order." The transmission ended, leaving behind a galaxy where ancient civilizations found themselves prisoners on their own planets, watching human ships pass silently through the void like shepherds watching their flock. Captain Teu made one final log entry as his ship drifted powerless near the human blockade. "We thought we were the adults. We were so very wrong."